Clara Thornton's blood dripped onto fresh snow, red against white. Her husband's boot pressed into her back while their 3 daughters screamed from the porch. "Worthless!" Silas spat. "Can't even give me a son!" The leather strap came down again. And again. She stopped counting after 7. Then, hoofbeats. A stranger's voice cut through the frozen morning. "Get off her! Now!" A rifle cocked. Clara lifted her head and saw a man with dead eyes climbing off his horse. Eyes that suddenly blazed to life. "You're coming with me," he said. Subscribe now and follow this story to the end. Comment your city below so I can see how far this journey reaches. The rifle barrel pressed against Silas Whitfield's chest before he could raise his hand again. "I said get off her!" Jacob Thornton's voice came out flat. Quiet. The kind of quiet that made men step backward. Silas stumbled away from his wife's leather strap still dangling from his fist. "This ain't your concern, stranger." "Made it my concern." Clara couldn't move. The snow beneath her had turned pink. Her ribs screamed with each breath. From somewhere far away she heard Nellie crying. Or was it Abigail? She couldn't tell anymore, couldn't think past the pain. "That's my wife." Silas puffed up his chest. "My property. Law says I can discipline her as I see fit." Jacob didn't blink. "Law also says I can shoot a man threatening me. You're threatening me." "I ain't. Your hand's moving toward your gun. That's a threat." Jacob tilted the rifle. "Try it, please." The 2 men stood frozen. Clara felt hands on her shoulders. Small hands. Nellie's voice in her ear. "Mama, Mama, get up. Please get up." Clara tried to push herself off the ground. Her arms gave out. She fell back into the snow. "Mama!" "Hush, girl." Silas pointed at his oldest daughter. "Get back in the house. Take your sisters." Nellie didn't move. 9 years old, and already she'd learned to read her father's moods. She'd seen what happened when she left her mother alone. "I said leave the child be." Jacob stepped forward. The rifle never wavered. "Ma'am, can you stand?" Clara tried again. This time she made it to her knees. Blood ran down her temple, mixing with tears she didn't remember crying. She looked up at the stranger. Tall, weathered. A face that had forgotten how to smile. But his eyes held something she hadn't seen in a man for a very long time. Kindness. Buried deep, but there. "I can try," she whispered. Jacob reached down with his free hand. Clara flinched. She couldn't help it. 6 years of marriage had taught her what happened when a man's hand came toward her face. But this hand didn't strike. It waited, palm up, patient. She took it. He pulled her to her feet like she weighed nothing. The world spun. She grabbed his arm to steady herself. "Easy, ma'am. I got you." Silas moved. Jacob's rifle swung back. "Don't. You can't just take her. There's laws." "There's also decency." Jacob guided Clara toward his horse. "Seems like one matters more to you than the other. I'll have the sheriff on you by noon. You do that." Nellie appeared at Clara's side, dragging Abigail by the hand. 6-year-old Abigail clutched her younger sister Rosie, who wailed into her shoulder. "Please, mister." Nellie's voice shook. "Please don't leave us with him." Jacob looked at the 3 girls. Something cracked behind his eyes. Something old and painful. He stood very still for a long moment. Then he lifted Rosie from Abigail's arms. "Come on, all of you." "Now wait just a damn minute." Silas lunged forward. Jacob spun. His fist connected with Silas's jaw. One punch. Clean. Hard. Silas dropped into the snow and didn't get up. "Horse can carry all of us if we go slow," Jacob said. His voice had gone rough. "Ma'am, you ride in front. Hold the little one. Girls behind me. Hold on tight." Clara stared at her husband lying unconscious in the snow. 6 years of fear, 6 years of silence, 6 years of convincing herself this was what marriage meant. "Ma'am, we need to go before he wakes." She looked at the stranger. "I don't even know your name." Jacob Thornton." He helped her onto the horse. "We can talk names later. Right now, we ride." They rode in silence for the first mile. Clara held Rosie against her chest, feeling the child's small heart racing. Behind her, Jacob's arms bracketed all of them as he held the reins. Nellie and Abigail clung to his coat, their small bodies pressed between the adults. The cold bit through Clara's thin dress. She'd run out without a coat, without shoes. She hadn't been thinking, hadn't planned. When Silas started swinging the strap, something inside her had finally snapped. She'd screamed back. First time in 6 years. That's when he'd dragged her outside. "You're bleeding bad, ma'am." Clara touched her temple. Her fingers came away red. "It'll stop. Got a place 8 miles north. Warm, safe. Nobody'll bother you there." "Why are you doing this?" Jacob didn't answer right away. The horse's hooves crunched through frozen grass. Wind cut across the empty prairie. "Because somebody should," he finally said. "You don't know me, don't know what I done." Maybe he had reason. No. The word hit like a slap. Clara flinched. No man has reason to beat a woman bloody in front of her children. Jacob's voice stayed quiet, but something dark ran underneath. "No matter what she done, no matter what anyone says, that ain't discipline. That's cruelty." Clara felt tears building. She fought them down. Crying solved nothing. She'd learned that early in her marriage. Abigail shifted behind Jacob. "Mister, is Papa gonna find us?" "Not today, little miss. But tomorrow? Tomorrow we figure out tomorrow. Today we get warm." Nellie spoke up. "He'll come. He always comes. Mama ran once before. He found her. Beat her so bad she couldn't walk for a week." Jacob's arms tightened on the reins. "That's so. He said if she ever ran again, he'd kill her. Said the law would call it justice. Said she was his to do with as he pleased." "Nellie," Clara's voice cracked. "Hush now." "But Mama—" "Let her speak, ma'am." Jacob guided the horse around a frozen creek bed. "It's important I know what I'm dealing with." "You're dealing with a mess," Clara said bitterly. "A stupid woman who should have run years ago. Should have taken my girls and disappeared. But I didn't have nowhere to go. No family, no money. Everything I own belongs to him. Even these clothes on my back." "Not anymore." "You don't understand. The law—" "I understand plenty." Jacob pulled the horse to a stop. He climbed down, then reached up to help Clara dismount. "Understand that the law protects men like your husband and leaves women like you to suffer. Understand that folks would rather look away than get involved. Understand that you ain't got many choices, and none of them good." He lifted the girls down one by one. Rosie immediately reached for Clara, whimpering. "I also understand," Jacob continued, meeting Clara's eyes, "that sometimes a man's gotta make his own law. Sometimes doing right means the world calls you wrong. They'll come for me, for us. Let them come. You could die, for strangers, for a woman you don't even know." Jacob turned away, started walking. The horse followed. "Already died once, ma'am, 5 years ago. Been walking around since then, but I ain't been living. Might as well do something worth doing before it catches up." Clara gathered her daughters, followed this strange, broken man across the frozen prairie. She didn't understand him, didn't trust him, couldn't trust any man, not anymore. But she had no choice. Behind her lay certain death. Ahead lay uncertain hope. She chose hope. The cabin appeared as the sun touched the horizon. Small, rough-hewn logs. A barn twice its size standing nearby. Smoke should have been rising from the chimney, but there was nothing. The place looked abandoned. "Home," Jacob said. The word came out hollow. "You live here alone. Have for 5 years." He dismounted, helped the girls down. "Cabin's got 1 room, fireplace, bed, enough blankets. You'll stay inside. I'll take the barn." Clara's legs nearly buckled when she hit the ground. She caught herself on the horse's flank. Jacob's hand steadied her elbow. "Easy. You took a bad beating." "I've had worse." He flinched, like her words had hurt him somehow. "That ain't right, ma'am. Nobody should have to say that." She didn't answer, just gathered Rosie into her arms and followed him toward the cabin. Inside it was cold, dusty, but clean beneath the dust. A bed against one wall, a table with 2 chairs, a fireplace with logs stacked beside it, and on the mantel a small carved wooden horse. Nellie noticed it first. "Pretty horse." Jacob's whole body went still. "Don't touch that." The sharpness in his voice made all 3 girls shrink back. Clara stepped in front of them. "They won't touch nothing that's yours. We'll stay out of your way. Soon as I can, we'll leave." Jacob closed his eyes. When he opened them, the hardness had faded. "Forgive me. That was... It was my daughter's. Made it for her before she was born. She never got to see it." Clara's heart clenched. "Your daughter." "She died. Her and her mama both. Birthing went wrong." Jacob knelt by the fireplace, started building a fire. His hands moved mechanically. 5 years ago. Winter like this one. Doctor made me choose. Save the wife or save the baby. I froze. Couldn't speak. Couldn't think. He chose for me. Tried to save the baby. Lost them both anyway. The fire caught. Warmth began to spread through the cabin. "I'm sorry," Clara whispered. Named her Rebecca. She never drew breath, but she had a name. Jacob stood. Wouldn't meet her eyes. "I'll get blankets from the barn. Food, too. Ain't much, but it'll keep you alive." He left before Clara could respond. Nellie tugged her mother's hand. "Mama is the sad man going to hurt us." Clara looked at the carved horse on the mantel, at the empty cabin that had clearly once held dreams, at the door where a broken man had just disappeared. "No baby. I don't think he can hurt anybody anymore. Not even himself." Night fell hard and fast. Jacob brought blankets, dried meat, bread that was only slightly stale. He built up the fire until the cabin glowed warm. The girls ate hungrily, their fear slowly fading into exhaustion. Rosie fell asleep, first thumb in her mouth. Abigail followed, curled around her sister like a small protective shell. Nellie fought it longest, watching Jacob with suspicious eyes every time he moved. "You can sleep little, miss," Jacob said softly. "I ain't gonna hurt your mama." That's what Papa said. First time they met. Mama told me. Clara flushed. "Nellie, it's true." Nellie's chin lifted. "You told me Papa was kind at first. Brought you flowers. Said pretty words. Then you married him and he changed." "Your mama's smart to teach you that," Jacob said. "Men can lie easy, especially to women they want something from. So how do we know you ain't lying?" "You don't." Jacob pulled on his coat. "Only time tells truth. I ain't asking you to trust me tonight. Just asking you to sleep warm and safe. Tomorrow you can decide if I earned any more than that." He headed for the door. "Mr. Jacob!" Nellie's voice stopped him. "Why'd you help us? Really?" Jacob's hand rested on the doorframe. He didn't turn around. "Because I was riding past. Because I heard screaming. Because when I was 12 years old, I watched my pa beat my ma bloody every Saturday night and didn't do nothing about it." His voice dropped. "She died when I was 14, just gave up living, and I promised myself I'd never stand by again, never look away when someone needed help." He opened the door. Cold air rushed in. "But you couldn't save your wife and baby." Clara gasped. "Nellie." "It's all right, ma'am." Jacob finally looked back. His eyes glistened in the firelight. She's right. Couldn't save them. Couldn't save my ma neither. Maybe I can't save you, but I can try. That's all any of us got in this life. The trying. He stepped out into the cold. Nellie lay down beside her sisters. Her hand found Clara's. Mama. Yes, baby. I think maybe he's telling truth. Clara stroked her daughter's hair. I think maybe he is too. Does that mean we're safe now? Clara looked at the barricaded door, at her sleeping daughters, at the warm fire and the carved horse on the mantel. I don't know, baby, but we're safer than we've been in a long time. Clara woke to screaming. Her body reacted before her mind caught up. She grabbed the girls, pulled them close, searched the dark room for Silas's shape, but the screaming came from outside, from the barn. Mama! Abigail clung to her. Mama, what's wrong? Hush, baby. Stay here. Don't move. Clara grabbed the fire poker, the only weapon she could find, and crept to the window. Moonlight spilled across the snow. The barn door hung open. Inside, a lamp flickered. The screaming stopped, then started again. A man's voice ragged with anguish. Rebecca! Rebecca! I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I should have said something. Should have told him to save you. Should have... Clara set down the poker. Mama. Nellie had woken. Is the sad man hurt? No, baby. He's dreaming. Go back to sleep. But Clara didn't go back to sleep. She sat by the window, watching the barn, listening to Jacob Thornton wrestle with ghosts she understood all too well. And something in her chest, something she'd thought Silas had killed years ago, stirred back to life. Dawn came gray and cold. Clara had dozed in the chair. She woke to the sound of wood being chopped. Outside, Jacob split logs with mechanical precision. His face was pale, dark circles under his eyes. But he worked like a man trying to outrun something that couldn't be outrun. She heated water, made coffee from the supplies he'd brought. When she opened the door with a cup in her hand, he stopped mid-swing. Ma'am, you should be resting. So should you. She held out the coffee. Heard you last night. He took the cup, wouldn't meet her eyes. Didn't mean to wake you. You didn't. I wasn't sleeping much anyway. Clara wrapped her arms around herself. The cold bit through her thin dress. Rebecca's a beautiful name. Jacob's jaw tightened. Was my grandmother's. And your wife, Catherine. He said the name like a prayer, like a wound. She was everything good about my life. When she died, the good went with her. I'm sorry. Don't be. Ain't your burden. He drained the coffee. How are the little ones? Scared, confused, but alive, thanks to you. Ain't done nothing yet. Your husband'll come, probably today, tomorrow at latest. I know. You ready for that? Clara thought about the leather strap, about Silas's boot on her back, about 6 years of silence and survival. I've been ready to die for a long time, Mr. Thornton. Yesterday was the first time I've been ready to live. Jacob looked at her then. Really looked. She saw him taking in the bruises on her face, the split lip, the way she held her ribs. How long? He asked quietly. Since our wedding night. He was upset. I didn't know what to expect. I cried. He didn't like that. Jacob's hand clenched around the axe handle. 3 months later, I got pregnant with Nellie. He wanted a son. When she was born, he blamed me. Said I was cursed. Said I'd tricked him into marrying damaged goods. That ain't how babies work. I know. He doesn't care. Clara touched her stomach. After Nellie, I prayed every night for a son. Thought maybe if I gave him what he wanted, he'd stop. But then came Abigail. Another girl. He broke my arm that time. Told everyone I fell down the stairs. And Rosie. Rosie was. He was so sure. Consulted some medicine woman who promised him the next one would be a boy. When the midwife announced another daughter, he didn't hit me. He just walked out, didn't speak to me for 3 months. Then he started with the strap. Jacob set down the axe. I'm gonna ask you something, ma'am, and I need you to answer true. All right. If he comes today, if he brings the sheriff and the law and all the power men like him got in this world, and if they say you gotta go back, what do you want me to do? Clara looked at this stranger who'd saved her life, this broken man living alone with his ghosts. I want you to let me go. Ma'am. No, listen. She stepped closer. You lost everything once. I can see it eating you alive. I won't be the reason you lose anything else. If they come, if there's no other way, you hand me over. Let the girls stay. They're innocent. He won't hurt them, he just ignores them. But me? She shook her head. I've lived through his hell before. I can do it again. No. The word surprised them both. Jacob picked up the axe, resumed chopping. His voice came out rough. I spent 5 years being dead, ma'am. 5 years of nothing but breathing and working and waiting for the end. Then yesterday I heard you scream, and something woke up. Something I thought was buried with Catherine and Rebecca. Thwack. The log split clean. I don't know what happens next. Don't know if we'll make it through the week. But I know one thing for certain. He looked up. His eyes burned. I ain't handing you over. Not today. Not ever. They want you. They go through me. You could die. Been dying slow for 5 years. Least this way means something. Clara felt tears streaming down her face. She didn't try to stop them. Why? She whispered. You don't know me. Don't owe me nothing. Jacob drove the axe into the chopping block, crossed to where she stood, reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and wiped a tear from her cheek. Because maybe, he said softly, saving you is how I save myself. Silas Whitfield woke to a pounding headache and an empty house. His jaw ached where the stranger had hit him. His pride burned hotter than any physical wound. He staggered to his feet, brushed snow from his coat, and looked at the tracks leading away from his property. Clara! He bellowed. Clara, you bring those girls back here right now! Silence, wind, nothing else. He stomped into the house, every room empty. Clara's few possessions still there, she'd run with nothing but the clothes on her back. Stupid woman. He grabbed his coat, his gun. Stupid, worthless woman. At the stable he saddled his fastest horse. His hands shook with rage. 6 years he'd put up with her weakness, her tears, her endless failure to produce an heir. And now she dared to shame him, to let another man carry her off like some kind of damsel. The sheriff would hear about this. The whole county would hear. By nightfall, everyone would know that Clara Whitfield was an adulteress and a runaway. The stranger who took her would hang, and Clara would learn what discipline really meant. Silas kicked his horse into a gallop. Behind him the sun climbed higher into a cold winter sky. Martha Harding saw Silas Whitfield ride into town like the devil himself was chasing him. She stepped back from her store window, one hand pressed to her chest. Lord have mercy. She'd seen the bruises on Clara's face for 6 years, the split lips, the way the woman flinched when any man raised a voice. Martha had asked once early on. Clara had smiled and said she was clumsy. Martha had wanted to believe her. It was easier that way. Now, watching Silas storm toward the sheriff's office, she wondered how much easier would cost. Martha! Her assistant, young Beth, appeared at her elbow. Something wrong. Maybe everything, Martha murmured. Or maybe something finally right. Across the street, Silas Whitfield's voice rose loud enough to shake windows. That man attacked me, stole my wife and children. I want him found. I want him hanged. Martha closed her eyes. Lord, forgive me for staying quiet so long, but maybe it ain't too late. Maybe this time somebody can stop him. She reached for her coat. Night fell on Jacob's ranch. Inside the cabin, the girls played a quiet game with pebbles Nellie had found near the fireplace. Clara had managed to make a stew from what little food remained. The smell filled the small space with something like warmth. Jacob ate, standing by the door watching the darkness outside. "You expecting trouble tonight?" Clara asked. "Expecting it every night till it comes." He set down his empty bowl. "Thank you for the meal, ma'am." "Clara. My name's Clara." "Clara." He tested the word, nodded. "Thank you, Clara." Rosie abandoned her game and toddled over to Jacob. She tugged on his pants leg until he looked down. "Up," she demanded. Jacob froze. He looked at Clara, helpless. "You don't have to." But Rosie wasn't waiting for permission. She raised her arms, insistent. "Up." Slowly, like he was handling something precious and breakable. Jacob lifted the toddler. She immediately snuggled against his chest, thumb finding her mouth. "Warm," she pronounced. Something shifted in Jacob's face. The hardness cracked. Just for a moment, Clara saw the man he might have been, the father he'd never gotten to be. "You're warm too little, miss," he said hoarsely. Abigail appeared at his side. "Can I have up too?" "Abigail," Clara started, but Jacob was already reaching down. He lifted her with his free arm, settling both girls against him like they belonged there. "There, both warm now." Nellie watched from across the room, cautious, evaluating. Clara could see her oldest daughter weighing this man, measuring him against every broken promise their father had ever made. Finally, Nellie spoke. "You're not like him." "Who?" "Papa. He never held us. Said it would make us soft. Said daughters weren't worth the trouble of affection." Jacob's arms tightened around the younger girls. "Your papa's a fool. Mama says we shouldn't speak ill of him. Your mama's a better person than me." Jacob met Clara's eyes across the room. "I'll speak ill of any man who raises hand to his wife and neglects his children. Being a father is a privilege, a gift. Some men never get it." His voice dropped. "Some men would give everything for one more day with daughters who never got to live." The cabin fell silent. Rosie patted Jacob's cheek. "Sad man." "Yeah, little miss. Sad man. I make happy." She planted a wet kiss on his jaw. "There. Better now." For the first time in 5 years, Jacob Thornton laughed. Clara lay awake long after her daughters slept. The fire had burned low. Outside, she could hear Jacob moving around, keeping watch. She should sleep. Her body ached, her wounds needed rest, but her mind wouldn't quiet. She rose, carefully wrapped a blanket around her shoulders, and slipped outside. Jacob sat on a barrel by the barn door rifle across his knees. Moonlight turned the snow blue and silver. Should be sleeping Clara. Should be lots of things. She settled onto a crate nearby. Couldn't quiet my mind. Know the feeling. They sat in silence for a while. The cold was bitter, but Clara barely felt it. After 6 years of Silas's ice, the winter seemed almost warm. "Can I ask you something?" she finally said. "Go ahead." "This morning, when you said saving me might save you, what did you mean?" Jacob stared out at the frozen prairie. "After Catherine died, I stopped feeling. Just turned it all off. Pain, joy, hope. Easier to be empty than to feel anything at all." "I understand that. I know you do. I could see it in your eyes when I lifted you out of that snow. Same emptiness, same giving up." He turned to look at her. "But then I saw those little girls. Saw them looking at you like you were their whole world. And I thought she ain't empty. She's just pretending to be. Just like me." Clara felt tears building again. "I stopped pretending today. When you came." "I know." Jacob reached over. Slowly, carefully, he took her hand. So did I. His fingers were rough, calloused. Nothing like Silas's soft, cruel hands. Clara tensed, waiting for the grip to turn painful. It didn't. I can't make you promises, Jacob said quietly. Can't say everything's gonna be fine. Your husband's got power. Law's on his side. We might lose everything tomorrow. I know. But tonight, he squeezed gently. Tonight you're safe. Tonight your girls are safe. And for the first time in 5 years, I remember why I wanted to keep living. Clara turned her hand in his, laced their fingers together. Then tonight, she whispered, is enough. They sat together under the stars, two broken people holding pieces of each other. And somewhere in the distance, wolves howled at the winter moon, warning of storms to come. Morning brought hoofbeats. Clara woke to Jacob shaking her shoulder. Get the girls. Cellar behind the barn. Go now. She didn't argue, didn't ask questions, just gathered her daughters and ran. The root cellar was cold and dark and smelled of earth. Clara pressed her children against her chest and listened. Voices outside, Silas's loud and demanding. Another voice, calm official. The sheriff. Thornton, we know they're here. Send out the woman and children, and this goes easy. Jacob's response was too quiet to hear. Don't be a fool, man. You're harboring another man's wife. That's kidnapping. You'll hang for it. A long pause. Then Jacob's voice, loud enough now to carry. Any man wants to take these children back to a home where they watch their mama get beat bloody, he goes through me first. That's my answer. Now get off my land. You're making a mistake, Thornton. Already made plenty. One more won't matter. Nellie clutched Clara's arm. Mama, they're gonna hurt him. Hush, baby. But Mama, I said hush. Clara pressed her ear to the cellar door. More voices, arguing. Then finally, hoofbeats retreating. They waited. Minutes passed. Maybe hours. Clara lost track. Then the cellar door opened. Jacob stood silhouetted against gray sky. They're gone. For now. Clara climbed out, girls following. What happened? Sheriff ain't happy, but he ain't stupid neither. 3 armed men against 1, he could have taken me. But that would have meant shooting. Witnesses. Questions. Jacob helped the girls up one by one. He's gonna come back with more men. Legal papers. Make it all official. How long do we have? Day, maybe 2. Jacob met her eyes. I sent Henry my hand to find Judge Harrison 2 counties over. Man owes me a favor. Might be he can help. And if he can't... Jacob looked at Nellie, Abigail, Rosie. 3 small faces staring up at him with fear and trust. Then we make a choice, he said quietly. Stand and fight, or run and never stop running. Clara's hand found his. We choose together. Jacob nodded slowly. Together then. And somewhere to the south, Silas Whitfield was already planning his return. The day passed slow and heavy. Clara kept the girls inside, while Jacob worked the perimeter, checking fence lines and sight lines, making sure he'd see riders coming from any direction. Every few hours he'd appear at the cabin door. Meet her eyes, shake his head. No one yet. By afternoon, Nellie couldn't take the waiting anymore. Mama, I need air, please. Clara looked at Jacob, who'd just come in for water. He nodded. Stay close to the barn. You see dust on the horizon, you run inside. Understand? Nellie was out the door before he finished speaking. Abigail followed, then Rosie toddled after her sisters, determined not to be left behind. Clara watched them through the window. 3 small figures in the snow throwing handfuls at each other, their laughter carrying on the wind. When's the last time they laughed like that? Jacob asked quietly. I don't remember. Clara's throat tightened. Silas didn't allow noise, said children should be seen and not heard. Nellie learned to play silent games, taught her sisters too. Jacob stood beside her at the window, close enough that she could feel warmth radiating from his body. That ain't no way for children to live. I know. I knew it every day, but knowing and changing are different things. You changed it now. Clara shook her head. You changed it. I just ran. Running takes courage too. Jacob turned to face her. Staying would have been easier, familiar. You chose the hard thing, the unknown thing. That ain't nothing, Clara. She met his eyes. Something passed between them. Something neither was ready to name. Outside, Rosie fell face first into a snowbank. Her wail broke the moment. Clara was out the door before she realized she was moving. She scooped up her youngest, brushing snow from the small face, checking for injury. Mama. Rosie clutched her neck. Cold? I know, baby. Let's get you warm. Jacob had followed. He pulled off his coat and wrapped it around both of them. Take her inside. I'll watch the others. Clara hesitated. The coat smelled like leather and wood smoke and something else. Something that made her chest ache in an unfamiliar way. Thank you, she whispered. Go on. She's shivering. Clara carried Rosie inside. Behind her she heard Jacob's voice, gentle and patient. Now then, little missus. Who wants to learn how to build a snowman? Abigail's squeal of delight was the sweetest sound Clara had heard in years. That evening, Henry Cole returned. Clara heard the horse first. She grabbed the girls ready to run for the cellar, but Jacob held up his hand. It's Henry. I know that mare's gait. The young man burst through the door minutes later, red-faced from cold and hard riding. Judge Harrison's coming, he gasped. 2 days. He's bringing federal paperwork. Says territorial law might not apply if he can prove... Henry trailed off looking at Clara. If he can prove certain things. What things? Clara asked. Henry shifted uncomfortably. Ma'am, begging your pardon, but he needs to see. The evidence. Clara understood. Her hand went to her ribs, still aching, to the fading bruises on her face. He needs to see what Silas did to me. Yes, ma'am. Jacob stepped forward. That ain't happening. She's been through enough without parading her wounds for... It's all right. Clara touched his arm, his whole body stilled. If showing my scars saves my daughters, I'll strip naked in the town square. Clara. I mean it, Jacob. She met his eyes. I spent 6 years hiding what he did to me, lying, pretending, protecting him because I was ashamed. Her voice hardened. I'm done being ashamed. He should be ashamed. And if the judge needs proof, I'll give him proof. Jacob's jaw worked. Something fierce and protective blazed in his eyes, but he nodded slowly. 2 days, he said to Henry. Can we hold out that long? Depends on Mr. Whitfield, sir. Heard in town he's gathering men, offering money to anyone who'll help him retrieve his property. Henry spat the word like it burned his tongue. Begging your pardon, ma'am. No pardon needed. I know what he calls me. How many men? Jacob asked. 6, maybe 7 by now. Sheriff Garrett, too, though he don't look happy about it. Garrett's a coward, not a villain. Jacob ran a hand through his hair. He'll follow the law, whatever he thinks that is. If we can hold till the judge arrives. Big if, sir. Only kind we got. Henry nodded. I'll take first watch. You look like you ain't slept in days. I'll sleep when this is over. You'll sleep now. Clara's voice surprised them all, including herself. I'll sit up with Henry. The girls are finally settled, and you're no good to anyone exhausted. Clara. Don't argue with me, Jacob Thornton. She folded her arms. I spent 6 years being told what to do. I'm done with that too. Go. Sleep. That's not a request. Henry coughed to hide a laugh. Jacob stared at Clara like he was seeing her for the first time. Yes, ma'am, he said finally, and to her astonishment he smiled. small and rusty like a door opening after years closed, but real. He headed for the barn. At the door he paused. Clara. Yes. Thank you for being bossy. He was gone before she could respond. Henry cleared his throat. Ma'am, if you don't mind me saying, I ain't seen Mr. Thornton's smile in 5 years. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Clara felt heat rise in her cheeks. I'm not doing anything. If you say so, ma'am. Henry tipped his hat. I'll be outside. The night stretched long and cold. Clara sat by the fire mending one of Abigail's dresses that had torn during the snow play. Her daughters slept in a tangle of limbs on the bed, peaceful as she'd ever seen them. Henry's boots crunched outside, making regular circuits. Reassuring sounds. Someone keeping watch. Around midnight she heard different footsteps. Heavier. Coming from the barn. She tensed, then recognized the gate. Jacob appeared in the doorway. His hair stuck up at odd angles. His eyes were still heavy with sleep. Couldn't stay down, he said. Thought I heard. All quiet. Henry's walking the perimeter. Good. Good. He stood awkwardly like he wasn't sure what to do with his hands. I could make coffee. I'd like that. He moved around the small space, gathering supplies, working with the quiet efficiency of a man used to caring for himself. Clara watched him, needle poised over fabric. Can I ask you something? She said. You keep asking that. You can always ask. Your wife, Catherine. What was she like? Jacob's hands stilled on the coffee pot. For a long moment, Clara thought she'd pushed too far. She was... He set the pot over the fire. She was... summer. That's the only way I know to describe her. Warm, bright. She walked into a room and everything felt easier. You loved her very much. More than breathing. He settled onto the floor near the fire, back against the wall. We met at a church social. Her pa didn't approve I was just a ranch hand and nothing to my name. But Catherine didn't care about names or money. She said she knew the first time we talked. Knew what? That I was hers. That she was mine. Like it was just settled. Somewhere before we were born. Clara's chest ached. That's beautiful. It was. Jacob stared into the flames. When she died, I wanted to follow her. Came close a few times. But something kept me going. Spite, maybe. Stubbornness. My ma always said Thorntons were too ornery to die easy. I'm glad you didn't. He looked up at her. Are you... Yes. The word came out stronger than she expected. Whatever happens next, I'm glad you were on that road. I'm glad you stopped. Clara. He got to his feet, crossed to where she sat, knelt before her like a man at prayer. I need to tell you something. Her heart hammered. All right. These past 2 days, having you here, hearing the girls laugh, eating a meal someone else cooked, his voice roughened. I feel like I've been underwater for 5 years and just broke the surface. Like I can finally breathe again. Jacob, I know it ain't right. I know you're still married. I know your husband's coming with guns and law and every advantage a man can have. He took her hand, slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. But if we only got 2 days, I want you to know. You brought me back to life, Clara. You and those 3 girls. Whatever happens, that's real. That matters. Clara felt tears sliding down her cheeks. I don't deserve... Don't. His grip tightened. Don't tell me what you don't deserve. You deserve everything good in this world. Everything your husband stole from you. Everything you stopped believing you could have. You don't know that. You don't know me. I'm not... I know you threw yourself between your children and a monster. I know you survived 6 years of hell without breaking. I know you found the courage to run. Jacob lifted her hand to his lips, pressed a kiss to her knuckles. I know enough. Clara couldn't speak, couldn't think. 6 years of being told she was worthless, damaged, cursed. And here was this broken, beautiful man looking at her like she hung the moon. I'm scared, she whispered. Me too. What if he wins? What if they take me back? They won't. But if they do? Clara. Jacob cupped her face in his hands. Listen to me. I lost Catherine because I froze. Because I couldn't speak when it mattered. I won't make that mistake again. You hear me? I will not let him take you back. Not while I'm breathing. You could die. Then I die doing something that matters. He rested his forehead against hers. First time in 5 years that's been true. They stayed like that, breathing the same air, holding on to each other in the firelight. Outside the wind howled. Inside something fragile and new took root. Mama! They sprang apart. Nellie stood by the bed rubbing her eyes. I heard voices. Is Papa here? No baby. Clara crossed to her daughter, heart still racing. Just me and Mr. Jacob talking. Go back to sleep. Nellie's eyes moved between them. 9 years old, but wise beyond her years. Were you holding hands? Clara flushed. Nellie! It's okay if you were. Nellie climbed back into bed, settling beside her sisters. I like him better than Papa. He's got kind eyes. She was asleep again in moments. Jacob appeared at Clara's shoulder. Smart girl. Too smart sometimes. She's right, though, about one thing. Which thing? My eyes. Jacob's voice dropped. They feel kinder when they're looking at you. Clara turned, found him closer than she expected, close enough to count the lines around his eyes, the threads of silver in his hair. Jacob, we can't. I know, not yet. Not while things are unsettled. He stepped back, created distance. But when this is over, if we survive it, I want you to know my intentions. Your intentions. To court you proper, the way you deserve, flowers and everything, a ghost of that rusty smile. I ain't got much to offer, this broken down ranch and a broken down man. But whatever I got, it's yours, if you want it. Clara felt something crack open in her chest, something she'd kept locked away for so long she'd forgotten it existed. Hope. Ask me again, she said softly. When this is over, when I'm free. I will, every day till you say yes. And if I say no, then I'll wish you well and spend the rest of my life grateful for these few days. Jacob headed for the door. Get some sleep, Clara. Tomorrow's going to be hard. He was gone before she could respond. Clara stood in the firelight, hand pressed to her racing heart, and wondered if it was possible to fall in love in the middle of a war. Morning came with storm clouds. Clara woke to Abigail shaking her shoulder. Mama, it's snowing again. Hard. She stumbled to the window. The world had gone white. Snow fell so thick she couldn't see the barn. Everyone stay inside today, she said. No going out for any reason. But Mama, I mean it, Nellie. This kind of storm you can get lost 10 feet from the door. Jacob burst in, covered in snow, stamping his boots. Blizzard coming. Big one. Might last 2-3 days. Will it slow them down? Clara asked. Silas and his men should. Nobody travels in weather like this, not if they got sense. Then we're safe. Jacob shook his head. Safe for now, but storms end, and angry men don't give up. They spent the morning securing everything they could. Jacob moved the horses into the barn's warmest stalls. Henry reinforced the cabin door. Clara gathered every blanket, every scrap of food, preparing for a siege. By noon, the storm had reached full fury. Wind shrieked around the cabin walls. Snow piled against the windows. The world narrowed to this one small space, warm and bright amid the howling white. We'll have to stay together tonight, Jacob said. Barn's too cold. Henry and I will sleep by the door. I don't mind, Nellie said immediately. Mr. Jacob keeps the bad dreams away. Clara raised an eyebrow. What bad dreams? Nellie looked at her feet. Sometimes I dream Papa's coming, that he's found us, that he's hitting you again and I can't stop him. Her voice trembled. But last night, I dreamed Mr. Jacob stood in front of us, and Papa couldn't get through. I slept good after that. Jacob crouched to Nellie's level. Dreams can't hurt you, little miss, but feelings are real. You feel scared, you come find me. Anytime. I'll remind you you're safe. Promise? Promise. Nellie threw her arms around his neck. Jacob froze for a moment, then his arms came up wrapping around the small girl like she was something precious. Over Nellie's head, his eyes found Clara's. She saw the shine of tears he was fighting. Thank you, Clara mouthed. He just held Nellie tighter. Trut. The storm trapped them together. First night passed restless. Too many bodies in too small a space. Henry snored. Rosie whimpered in her sleep. Clara lay awake listening to the wind and Jacob's quiet breathing near the door. Second day, the cabin fever set in. The girls grew restless, picking at each other, testing limits. Clara ran out of patience by mid-afternoon. I need them to burn energy somehow, she told Jacob desperately. They're going to tear each other apart. I got an idea. Jacob rummaged in a corner, produced a worn deck of cards. My pa taught me a game when I was about Nellie's age. Simple enough for the little ones, complicated enough to keep the big one interested. What's it called? We called it Cowboy Poker. Probably got a real name, but I never learned it. He gathered the girls on the bed dealing cards with a practiced hand. Clara watched from the fireplace, amazed at his patience. He explained rules 3 times for Abigail. Let Rosie win hands she definitely shouldn't have. Challenged Nellie just enough to keep her engaged. You're good with them, Clara said during a break in play. They're easy to be good with. Jacob shuffled the cards. They ain't broken yet, just scared. Scared can be fixed. Can it? Has to be. Otherwise, what's the point of surviving? That evening, with the storm still raging, Jacob told stories. Tales of cattle drives and wild horses, of frontier justice and hidden gold. The girls hung on every word. Even Henry, pretending to keep watch, leaned in to listen. Tell another, Abigail begged when he finished. It's late, sweetheart. Time for sleep. Please, Mr. Jacob, just one more, Clara interceded. One more. Short one. Jacob thought for a moment. All right, this one's about a princess. Cowboys don't have princesses, Nellie said skeptically. This one does. See, there was a princess who lived in a tower, not because she was locked there, but because she'd locked herself in. She thought it was the only way to be safe. Clara went very still. One day a cowboy came riding past. He'd lost everything, his horse, his hat, his hope. He was just wandering, not going anywhere particular, and he saw the tower. Did he climb it? Abigail asked. Nope, he just sat down at the bottom and waited. Waited for what? For the princess to be ready. See, he knew you can't make someone leave a tower. They gotta decide themselves. But he figured maybe if she knew someone was waiting, she'd decide faster. Did she? Jacob's eyes found Clara's. She did. One day she opened the door, looked down at this broken, dusty cowboy and said, "What are you doing here?" And he said, "Waiting for you to be ready to come down." Then what happened? Rosie demanded. Then she came down, and they walked together, not to anywhere special, just together. And it turned out that was the somewhere special all along. The cabin fell quiet. That's a good story, Nellie said softly. Yeah, Clara whispered. It is. Third night, the storm broke. Clara woke to silence. No wind, no shrieking, just the crackle of the dying fire and the soft breathing of her daughters. She slipped outside. The world had transformed. Pristine white in every direction, unmarked and perfect. The sky blazed with stars like she'd never seen brilliant against the black. Beautiful, ain't it? She jumped. Jacob stood by the barn watching the sky. Couldn't sleep, she said. Me neither. He crossed to stand beside her. Storm's over. Tomorrow they'll come. I know. You scared? Terrified. She wrapped her arms around herself. But not like before. Before I was scared of living. Now I'm scared of losing. This. Clara gestured at the cabin, the sky, the man beside her. Everything I didn't know I could have. Peace. Safety. You. Jacob turned to face her. Starlight caught the angles of his face, the hope and fear battling in his eyes. Clara, Don't say it. She pressed a finger to his lips. Not yet. Not till I'm free. I need to be free when you say it. When I say it back. When? She let her hand fall to his chest, felt his heart pounding. I'm trusting you, Jacob Thornton. I don't trust easy. Not anymore. But I'm trusting you. I won't let you down. You might not be able to help it. Things might go wrong. We might lose. Then we lose together. He covered her hand with his. But Clara, I gotta say one thing. Not the thing, but one thing. What? You gave me a reason to be human again. Whatever happens tomorrow, that don't change. You understand that's done. That's real. Nobody can take it back. Clara felt tears freezing on her cheeks. Maybe we saved each other. Maybe we did. They stood together under the stars, two wounded souls finding shelter in each other. The storm had passed. Dawn would bring danger, but tonight, for one perfect moment, they had peace. Then far in the distance, a wolf howled. And another answered. Real wolves were coming. And they wouldn't be the four-legged kind. Dawn came bloody and red. Clara stood at the window watching the sun rise over snow that still looked peaceful, still looked safe. But she knew better now. Peace was borrowed time. Safety was an illusion. They'll come today. Jacob's voice came from behind her. Storm's cleared. Roads will be passable by noon. I know. You ready? Clara turned to face him. No, but I'm done waiting. Jacob nodded slowly. Something shifted in his expression. Respect, maybe, or recognition. I need to ride into town, get supplies, see what Silas is planning. That's dangerous. Staying blind is more dangerous. He pulled on his coat. Henry'll stay with you. Don't open the door for anyone but me. Anyone. Jacob. I'll be back before dark, I promise. He was gone before she could argue. Boy. The ride into town took 2 hours through fresh snow. Jacob kept his rifle loose across his saddle eyes, scanning every hill and hollow. The world looked clean after the storm, but he knew better. Clean things got dirty fast out here. Haven Creek appeared mid-morning, smoke rising from chimneys. People moving through streets they'd shoveled clear. Normal. Peaceful. Like nothing was wrong. Jacob dismounted outside Harding's general store. Martha Harding herself appeared in the doorway before he reached the steps. Mr. Thornton, you shouldn't be here. Need supplies. You need to leave. Martha glanced up and down the street. Silas has been in town every day since the storm started. Talking, buying drinks, making promises. What kind of promises? The kind backed by money. Martha lowered her voice. He's got 7 men now. Sheriff Garrett's with them, though he looks like he'd rather be anywhere else. They're planning something. When? Today. Tomorrow. Soon as Silas decides he's got enough force. Martha grabbed Jacob's arm. That woman and her girls, they're still with you. Yes. Then get them out. Tonight. Head west and don't stop. Can't do that. Stubborn fool. You'll get yourself killed. Maybe. Jacob met her eyes. But I ain't running. Not from the likes of Silas Whitfield. Martha studied him for a long moment. Then she sighed. Wait here. She disappeared into the store, came back with a bundle wrapped in cloth. Ammunition, bandages, medicine. Don't ask what it cost, I ain't charging you. Mrs. Harding. That woman came into my store 2 years ago. Bought fabric for a dress. She had a black eye, she said came from a door. Martha's voice hardened. I knew, and I didn't do nothing. Let me do something now. Jacob took the bundle. Thank you. Thank me by keeping them alive. Martha pushed him toward his horse. Now go, before someone sees you talking to me. Jacob mounted, started to turn his horse. Mr. Thornton. He looked back. There's others, Martha said quietly. Others who know, who've seen. We've all been too scared to speak. But if it came to it, if there was a chance. She trailed off. A chance for what? To do the right thing. Finally. Jacob nodded slowly. I'll remember that. He rode out of town with 7 pairs of eyes following him. And somewhere behind one of those windows, Silas Whitfield watched and smiled. He's back! Nellie's shout brought Clara running to the window. Jacob's horse appeared over the hill moving fast. Too fast. Clara's stomach dropped. She grabbed the girls, pushed them toward the cellar. No, Mama, Nellie struggled. It's Mr. Jacob. Something's wrong. Go, now. But, mind your mother. Henry appeared, rifle in hand. I'll check it out. You stay down till I give the all clear. Clara herded her daughters into the root cellar, closed the door, pressed her ear against the wood, and listened. Hoofbeats stopping. Voices. Jacob and Henry talking fast and low. Then footsteps approaching. The cellar door opened. Jacob's face appeared grim, but not panicked. It's all right. Come out. Clara climbed up, heart still racing. What happened? Why were you riding so fast? Saw dust on the horizon behind me. Might be nothing. Might be them. Jacob helped the girls out one by one. Either way, we need to prepare. Prepare how? Come with me. He led her to the barn. In the corner, hidden under hay, was a cache she hadn't noticed before. Rifles, ammunition, a shotgun. I wasn't always a peaceful man, Jacob said quietly. Hope those days were behind me. But hope and reality ain't always friendly. Clara stared at the weapons. I don't know how to shoot. Time you learned. The lesson started immediately. Jacob led her behind the barn, away from the cabin where Henry watched the girls. He set up a target, a bale of hay with a flour sack propped against it. This is a Winchester rifle. He placed the weapon in her hands. It's got weight. You're gonna feel it when it kicks. Plant your feet, shoulder tight against the stock. Clara raised the rifle. Her arms shook. Breathe out. Squeeze. Don't pull. She fired. The kick knocked her backward. The shot went wide, hitting nothing but snow. Again. She fired. Missed. Again. Missed. Again. This time she clipped the edge of the hay bale. Better. Again. By the 10th shot, her shoulder ached and her ears rang. But she was hitting the target more than she missed. You're a natural, Jacob said. I'm terrible. You're learning. That's different. He reloaded the rifle. Tomorrow we'll practice more. Day after that, even more. By the time they come, you'll be ready. Ready to kill someone? Jacob went quiet. Clara saw shadows move behind his eyes. Ready to defend yourself, he said finally. Killing's easy. Living with it's hard. But watching someone hurt the people you love and not being able to stop it. He shook his head. That's the hardest thing of all. You're speaking from experience. I watched my ma die slow. Watched my wife and daughter die fast. Both times I couldn't do nothing. Jacob's voice dropped. I won't watch that again, and neither will you. Clara looked at the rifle in her hands. Heavy, cold, deadly. Teach me more, she said. That night they saw torches. Clara spotted them, first pinpricks of light on the southern horizon, moving slowly closer. Jacob! He was at the window in seconds. His jaw tightened. "How many?" Clara asked. "4, maybe 5. Hard to tell." "Are they coming here?" "No. They're circling." Jacob grabbed his rifle. "Letting us know they're out there. Letting us know we're being watched." "Psychological warfare," Henry said from the door. "Saw it in the war. They want us scared. Want us to run or surrender before they have to fight." "Will it work?" Clara hated how small her voice sounded. "Not on me." Jacob checked his ammunition. "You scared?" "Yes." "Good. Fear keeps you sharp." He moved toward the door. "I'm going out. Need to know how many, how close." "Jacob, no." "Henry, stay with them. Anyone approaches you, shoot first and ask questions after." "Jacob." But he was already gone, slipping into the darkness like a shadow. Clara stood at the window, watching the torches circle like wolves around a wounded deer. Behind her, Rosie whimpered in her sleep. Abigail clutched her sister tighter. Nellie appeared at Clara's side, her small face pale but determined. "Is Mr. Jacob going to be okay?" "Yes, baby." "You don't know that." Clara looked at her oldest daughter. 9 years old and already too wise for comfort. "No, I don't. But I believe it. Sometimes that's all we got." Nellie took her mother's hand. "I believe it too. He promised to keep the bad dreams away. He can't do that if he's dead." Despite everything, Clara almost smiled. "That's solid logic." "I know, I'm smart." They stood together watching the torches, waiting for Jacob to return. 2 hours later, he did. Clara heard the signal. 3 quick knocks, paused 2 more, and threw open the door. Jacob stumbled inside, breathing hard sweat freezing on his face despite the cold. 6 men, he gasped. "Silas the sheriff, 4 others I don't recognize. They've made camp about 2 miles south, got a fire going. Drinking. They're not attacking tonight. No, they want us exhausted. They'll hit us when they think we're weakest." Jacob peeled off his coat. "But I saw something else." "What?" "Ryder heading the other direction, fast, toward Judge Harrison's territory." "The judge?" "He should be arriving tomorrow or the next day, if my message got through, if he believed it." Jacob met her eyes. "We just need to hold on, Clara. Hold on till help comes. And if it doesn't, then we hold on anyway." Morning brought an unexpected visitor. Not Silas, not the sheriff. Reverend Samuel Tucker. Clara saw him coming from the window, a single rider, no weapons visible, moving slow and deliberate. She called for Jacob. "I see him." Jacob squinted. "That's the preacher from town. Ain't never had much dealing with him." "He's the one who married me to Silas," Clara said quietly. "He told me God blessed our union, said a wife's duty was submission." Jacob's expression darkened. "Want me to send him away?" "No." Clara straightened her shoulders. "I want to hear what he has to say." The Reverend dismounted at the property line, hands raised. "I come in peace. I'm unarmed. I need to speak with Mrs. Whitfield." Jacob stepped onto the porch, rifle visible. "You can speak from there." "Please, Mr. Thornton, I'm not here to cause trouble." "Then why are you here?" The Reverend hesitated. For the first time, Clara saw something other than certainty in his face. Doubt. Shame, maybe. "Because I've been wrong," he said, "and I need to make it right." Clara moved past Jacob before he could stop her. She crossed the yard, stopped 10 feet from the preacher. "You married us," she said. "You told me to honor and obey. You told me suffering built character." "I know." Tucker's voice cracked. "I know what I said. And I've spent 6 years watching the results and telling myself it wasn't my concern. That was cowardice dressed up as faith. Why now? Why come here now? Because I finally looked. Really looked." Tucker's hands trembled at his sides. "When Silas came to town ranting about his stolen wife, I saw something. Joy. He was happy. Happy that he'd get to punish you. And I thought, what kind of marriage brings a man joy at his wife's suffering? The kind you blessed. Yes, the kind I blessed. Tucker took a shaky breath. I've spoken to Martha Harding, to Dr. Price, to others. They told me things I should have seen for myself, things I willfully ignored. Clara felt Jacob behind her now, his presence warm and solid. What do you want, Reverend? I want to help. When this comes to a head, and it will, I want to stand witness. Tell the truth about what I've seen, what I should have spoken against years ago. Tucker met her eyes. I can't undo the damage, can't erase the pain, but I can try to make sure it ends here, that Silas Whitfield is held accountable. Pretty words, Jacob said coldly. Words are cheap. They are. That's why I'm here in person. That's why I'll stay if you'll let me until this is resolved. Tucker's jaw set. I've been a coward my whole life, Mr. Thornton. I'm 62 years old, and I've never once stood up for what's right when it cost me anything. It's time that changed. Clara studied the old preacher, the fear in his eyes, the determination fighting it. You'll testify against Silas, against the sheriff if necessary. I'll testify, even if it turns the whole town against you. Especially then. Tucker's voice steadied. I've spent my life worrying about what people think. Turns out that's a terrible way to serve God. He doesn't care about popularity. He cares about justice. And justice says that woman shouldn't be beaten by her husband. That children shouldn't grow up in fear. That men like Silas Whitfield shouldn't be protected by law and custom while their victims suffer. Clara felt something shift in her chest. Not forgiveness that would take time if it came at all, but something. A crack in the wall of isolation. You can stay in the barn, she heard herself say. Jacob will find you blankets. Clara. Jacob started. He came alone, unarmed, in full view. She turned to face him. If he was here to betray us, he picked a stupid way to do it. Jacob looked at Tucker for a long moment. Then he nodded. One wrong move, preacher. One sign you're playing us. And I'll put a bullet in you myself. Fair enough. Tucker's shoulders sagged with relief. Thank you, both of you. That afternoon, Dr. Eleanor Price arrived. She came in a small wagon medical bag at her side, face set with determination. I heard Tucker was here, she said by way of greeting. Figured if that old coward finally grew a spine, I'd better do the same. Clara stared at the woman who'd treated her wounds so many times. Dr. Price. I've got 6 years of medical records, Mrs. Whitfield. Broken bones, lacerations, contusions, all documented with dates and descriptions. Dr. Price's voice hardened. I told myself I was respecting your privacy by not reporting. The truth is, I was protecting myself. I'm done with that now. Jacob stepped forward. You came to help. I came to make sure those records get to the right hands. Judge Harrison when he arrives. Federal authorities if necessary. Dr. Price looked at Clara. I also came to apologize. I should have done more, said more. I let fear silence me when I should have screamed. Clara felt tears building. 2 people in one day. 2 people finally breaking free of the silence that had trapped them all. You're here now, she managed. That's what matters. It's not enough. It'll never be enough. Dr. Price set down her bag. But it's a start. By evening, the cabin felt crowded. Tucker and Dr. Price, Henry, Jacob, Clara, and the 3 girls. 7 people in a space built for one. But nobody complained. The air hummed with something Clara hadn't felt in years. Solidarity. They'll come tomorrow, Jacob said over dinner. Now that they know others have joined us, they'll want to move fast, before more people switch sides. Let them come. Tucker's voice surprised everyone with its firmness. God is on the side of the righteous. Respectfully, Reverend Bullets don't care much about righteousness. Henry checked his rifle. We're still outgunned. We're not outgunned. Dr. Price spoke up. We're outnumbered. There's a difference. Guns only matter if you're willing to use them, and I've known Sheriff Garrett for 20 years. He's not a killer. Neither are most of the men Silas has gathered. They're scared, Clara said quietly. Everyone looked at her. Silas has money, influence. They're scared of what happens if they don't follow him. So we show them they should be more scared of not following us. No, Clara shook her head. We show them there's another choice, that they don't have to be afraid of him anymore. How do we do that? By not being afraid ourselves. Clara looked around the room, at the preacher who'd found his courage late, at the doctor who'd finally spoken up, at the ranch hand who'd stayed when he could have run, at the man who'd saved her life and was risking his own. Fear is how Silas controls people. It's how he controlled me for 6 years. If we stand together, if we refuse to break, if we show this town that one man's anger isn't stronger than all of us together. She took a breath. Maybe, just maybe, we break his power. The cabin fell silent. Then Nellie's small voice. Mama's right. Papa wins because people are scared. But we're not scared anymore. Are we? Every adult looked at the 9-year-old girl who'd spent her whole life learning to read danger. No, Jacob said slowly. We're not. Then we win. Nellie's chin lifted. That's how it works. The brave ones win. That night, Clara couldn't sleep. She slipped outside wrapped in a blanket and found Jacob already there, watching the horizon. Couldn't quiet my mind, she said. Know the feeling. They stood in silence for a while. Stars blazed overhead, indifferent to the drama below. Do you think we'll make it? Clara finally asked. I don't know. Jacob's voice was honest. But I know we've got a better chance than we did a week ago, and I know that whatever happens, you're not facing it alone. That's the first time in 6 years I can say that. Then it's worth it. Whatever comes. Jacob turned to face her. Clara, there's something I need to tell you. What? When I rode into town today, when I saw those torches tonight, both times I wasn't scared for myself. I was scared for you, for the girls. He took her hand. That's new for me. For 5 years I didn't care if I lived or died. Now I care. Because of you. Clara squeezed his fingers. I care too. I didn't think I could anymore, but I do. When this is over, she said softly, we'll have time. Time for everything we're afraid to say now. Promise. Promise. They stood together under the stars, drawing strength from each other. Behind them, friends and allies slept. Before them, enemies gathered. But for this moment, they had peace. And in the morning, they would have war. They came at noon, when the sun hung highest and shadows had nowhere to hide. Clara heard them first. The thunder of hooves, the jangle of metal. She grabbed Rosie from the floor, where she'd been playing with pebbles, and pressed her against her chest. Nellie, Abigail, Cellar, now! But Mama... Now! Nellie grabbed her sister's hand. They ran. Jacob appeared in the doorway, rifle already in his hands. His face had gone hard, all the softness she'd come to know buried beneath something older, something dangerous. 8 riders. Silas in front. Sheriff Garrett beside him. The girls are hidden. Good. Stay inside. Don't come out unless I call for you. Jacob. He crossed to her in 3 strides. Cupped her face in his hands. For one heartbeat, all the fear and rage fell away, and she saw only him. Whatever happens out there, you remember what I said. You're worth fighting for. You hear me? I hear you. He kissed her forehead. Quick. Fierce. Then he was gone. Clara moved to the window, watched him walk toward the approaching rider's rifle, held loose but ready. Reverend Tucker emerged from the barn Bible in hand. Dr. Price stood on the porch, medical bag at her feet like a statement. Henry positioned himself by the water trough, weapon visible. 4 against 8. But somehow, watching Jacob stand his ground, Clara thought maybe it was enough. Silas Whitfield looked like he'd dressed for church. Clean coat, polished boots, hair slicked back. Only his eyes betrayed him, wild with rage barely contained beneath a surface of false calm. Thornton. He pulled his horse to a stop, 20 feet from where Jacob stood. You've caused a lot of trouble. Just getting started. I've got legal papers this time. Silas waved a document. Signed by Judge Morrison. That woman in your cabin is my wife. Those children are my property. The law says you hand them over, now. Judge Morrison's in Silas's pocket, Dr. Price called out. Everyone knows it. His signature isn't worth the paper it's printed on. Silas's eye twitched. Stay out of this, Eleanor. This doesn't concern you. I've got 6 years of medical records that say otherwise. Lies. All of it. My wife is clumsy. She falls. Everyone knows you beat her. Reverend Tucker stepped forward. We all know. We've all seen. We just didn't have the courage to speak. Well, I'm speaking now. What you've done to that woman is a sin before God and man. You married us. Silas's composure cracked. You stood in your church and blessed our union. And I've regretted it every day since. Tucker's voice rang clear. I was blind. I was a coward. But I see now, and I won't be silent anymore. Sheriff Garrett shifted uncomfortably on his horse. Silas, maybe we should wait. Talk this through. There's nothing to talk about. She's my wife. Silas's horse danced beneath him, responding to his anger. The law is clear. A woman belongs to her husband. I have every right to discipline her as I see fit. Discipline. Jacob's voice cut through like a blade. That what you call beating a woman bloody in front of her children, discipline? How I manage my household is none of your concern. You made it my concern when you dragged her into the street, when you used a strap on her while her daughters watched. Jacob stepped forward. I've seen a lot of cruelty in my time, Whitfield, but what you did, that wasn't discipline. That was evil. Silas's face went purple. You dare. I dare plenty, and I'll dare more before this is over. One of Silas's men, a thick-necked farmer Clara didn't recognize, urged his horse forward. We ain't here to talk, Silas. You said we'd get this done quick. Sun's burning daylight. He's right. Silas pulled a pistol from his coat. I'm done negotiating. Hand over my wife and children, Thornton, or we ride you down. Try it. The words hung in the cold air. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then hoofbeats. Coming fast from the east. Every head turned. A single rider appeared over the hill, pushing hard coat flying behind him. That's Billy Warren, Sheriff Garrett said, squinting. The telegraph operator. Billy pulled his horse to a sliding stop, gasping for breath. Sheriff message came through. Judge Harrison's on his way. He's got federal deputies with him. Says nobody's to do anything till he arrives. Silas's face contorted. When tomorrow morning, maybe sooner if they ride through the night. That's not soon enough. Silas raised his pistol. This ends today. Silas, wait. Sheriff Garrett reached out. The shot cracked across the valley. Jacob spun, grabbed his shoulder, went down on one knee. Clara screamed. Everything happened at once. Henry fired. One of Silas's men tumbled from his horse. Tucker dove for cover. Dr. Price was already running toward Jacob, medical bag in hand. Clara didn't think, didn't plan. She grabbed the rifle Jacob had left by the door and burst onto the porch. Clara, no! Dr. Price shouted. She raised the weapon, found Silas in her sights. Her hands shook, her heart hammered. Silas saw her, smiled. Going to shoot me, wife? You don't have the spine. Don't test her. Jacob struggled to his feet, blood seeping between his fingers. She's got more spine than you'll ever know. She's nothing. She's worthless. 3 daughters and not 1 son. She's cursed and everyone knows it. The only curse, Clara said, her voice steady even as her hands trembled, was marrying you. She pulled the trigger. The shot went wide, clipped Silas's hat off his head. He ducked momentarily, stunned. It was enough. Jacob tackled him off his horse. They went down hard, rolling in the snow, fighting for control of Silas's pistol. Clara lost sight of them in the chaos. Sheriff Garrett dismounted, hands raised. Everyone stop! Stop, this has gone too far. Then make it stop! Dr. Price shouted back. Call off your men. They ain't my men. They're his. Garrett pointed at where Jacob and Silas fought. I never wanted this. I just wanted to do my job. Your job. Tucker emerged from cover, face red with anger. Your job is to protect people, all people, not just the ones with money. Another shot rang out. One of Silas's men, the one who'd urged action, had raised his rifle toward Henry. Henry was faster. The man fell. Suddenly, the remaining hired men were looking at each other, at the bodies of their companions, at the chaos around them. I didn't sign up for this, one muttered. He turned his horse, rode away. Another followed, then a third. Within seconds, only Silas and Sheriff Garrett remained of the original 8. Jacob and Silas fought like men possessed. Clara watched helpless as they traded blows. Jacob was wounded, bleeding, weakening with every passing second. But he wouldn't stop, wouldn't yield. Silas got the upper hand, pinned Jacob beneath him, wrapped his hands around Jacob's throat. Should have minded your own business, Thornton. Silas squeezed. Now you'll die for another man's wife. How does that feel? Jacob clawed at Silas's hands. His face turned red, purple. Clara raised the rifle again. Mama, no! Nellie burst from the cellar, running toward the fighting men. Nellie! Clara abandoned the rifle, ran after her daughter. But Nellie was faster. She reached the struggling men and threw herself onto Silas's back, small fists pounding. Leave him alone! Leave him alone! Silas released Jacob, tried to shake off the child. Get off me, you! He backhanded Nellie. She flew backward, landed hard in the snow. Something inside Clara snapped. She didn't remember crossing the distance, didn't remember picking up the fallen pistol, only remembered pressing the barrel against Silas's temple while he crouched over her stunned daughter. Touch her again! Clara's voice came from somewhere far away, somewhere cold and certain. I dare you! Silas froze. Clara! Jacob's voice hoarse and raw. Clara, don't! He hit my daughter. I know, but if you pull that trigger, you're a murderer. Doesn't matter that he deserves it. Law won't see it that way. I don't care about the law. I know you don't, but your girls do. They need their mama. Jacob struggled to his feet, approached slowly. They need you alive and free, not hanging from a rope because of him. Tears streamed down Clara's face. The pistol shook in her hand. He hurt them. For years. He hurt all of us. And he'll pay for it. I promise you. But not like this. Jacob reached her, gently placed his hand over hers on the pistol. Not like this, Clara. Silas started to speak. Jacob's boot caught him in the ribs. Shut up. You've said enough. Clara looked at her husband, this monster who'd stolen 6 years of her life, who'd made her daughters afraid of their own shadow, who'd convinced her she was worthless. She wanted to pull the trigger. God help her, she wanted it more than she'd ever wanted anything. But Nellie was watching. Abigail had emerged from the cellar, Rosie in her arms. 3 pairs of eyes fixed on their mother. Clara lowered the pistol. Jacob took it from her trembling hand, pressed it into Sheriff Garrett's chest. You want to do your job? Start now. Arrest this man. Garrett hesitated. On what charge? Assault, battery, attempted murder. Take your pick. Dr. Price appeared, already wrapping Jacob's wound. I've got documentation going back 6 years. Every injury, every accident. It's all recorded. And I'll testify. Tucker stood tall. I'll testify to what I've seen, what I should have spoken against long ago. The judge is coming. Henry kept his rifle trained on Silas. Federal judge, with federal deputies. You really want to explain to him why you let a wife-beater go free? Garrett looked at Silas, at Clara, at the small cluster of people who'd finally found their voices. Then he pulled out handcuffs. Silas Whitfield, you're under arrest. Silas fought the cuffs, screamed, cursed. You can't do this. She's my wife, my property, the law. The law's changing, Mr. Whitfield. Garrett's voice held no sympathy. And you're on the wrong side of it. I'll kill you all, every one of you, when I get out. You won't get out. Clara stepped forward, face tear-streaked but steady. I'm going to testify. Every bruise, every broken bone, every night I spent terrified on the floor while my children listened. All of it. And when I'm done, no judge in the territory will let you walk free. You wouldn't dare. Wouldn't I? Clara knelt until she was eye level with the man who'd terrorized her for 6 years. You taught me to be afraid, Silas. Every day, every hour. But you made a mistake. What mistake? You didn't kill me when you had the chance. And now I'm not afraid anymore. She stood, turned her back on him, walked to where her daughters waited. Nellie threw herself into Clara's arms. Mama, Mama, you were so brave. No, baby, you were brave, running out like that. I had to. He was hurting Mr. Jacob. Clara looked over her daughter's head at Jacob, pale, bloody, but alive. Yes, she whispered. He was hurting Mr. Jacob. They moved inside as Garrett rode away with Silas secured to his saddle. Dr. Price worked on Jacob's wound while Clara held his hand. The bullet had gone clean through his shoulder, painful but not fatal. He'd carry the scar forever. Add it to the collection, Jacob said with a weak smile. How many do you have? Enough to tell stories about. I'd like to hear those stories someday. Someday. His eyes held hers. We got a lot of somedays ahead of us now. Tucker appeared in the doorway. Riders coming, 3 of them, moving fast. Everyone tensed. Clara's hand went to the rifle propped against the wall. Wait. Henry squinted through the window. That's federal insignia. It's the judge. Judge William Harrison was a small man with sharp eyes and no patience for nonsense. He arrived with 2 deputies, listened to the story from everyone present, and examined Dr. Price's medical records with growing horror. 6 years, he said finally. 6 years this went on, and nobody said anything. We were afraid. Tucker's voice was heavy with shame. We told ourselves it wasn't our business, that she must have done something to deserve it. That's what we told ourselves. And now we know better. Now we're ready to speak. Harrison looked at Clara. Mrs. Whitfield, are you prepared to testify formally before a court of law? Yes. It won't be easy. You'll have to recount everything, in detail, in public. I know. And you're willing to do that. Clara looked at her daughters, at Jacob, at the unlikely allies who'd gathered around her. I spent 6 years in silence, letting him tell everyone I was clumsy, letting him tell me I was worthless. She lifted her chin. I'm done being silent. If my story saves even one other woman from what I went through, it's worth any embarrassment. Harrison nodded slowly. Then we'll proceed. I'm invalidating Judge Morrison's order. He had no authority to rule on a case this serious. Silas Whitfield will be tried in federal court for aggravated assault, attempted murder, and domestic abuse. Will he hang? Nellie's small voice surprised everyone, Harrison crouched to her level. Maybe not hang young miss, but he'll go to prison for a very long time, long enough that when he gets out, you'll be grown with children of your own, and he won't be able to hurt any of you ever again. Promise? I promise. Nellie studied the judge's face with the same intensity she'd used on Jacob that first night. Finally, she nodded. Okay, I believe you. The deputies took custody of Silas that evening. Clara watched them ride away, her husband bound between them, still screaming threats into the darkening sky. She waited for relief, for joy, for something. Instead, she felt empty, hollowed out, like a tooth pulled from rotted gum. It doesn't feel the way I thought it would, she said. Jacob stood beside her, arm in a sling. What did you think it would feel like? I don't know. Triumph, maybe? Happiness? Something. Those come later. Right now, you're still processing, still realizing it's real. He took her hand. Give yourself time, Clara. You've been surviving for 6 years. Living takes practice. Will you teach me? We'll teach each other. That night, with Silas gone, and guards posted, and children finally sleeping peacefully, Clara and Jacob sat on the porch under a sky thick with stars. Thank you, Clara said, for everything. I don't have words big enough. Don't need big words. Jacob shifted closer. Small ones work fine. Then thank you. 2 small words, all I've got. That's plenty. He was quiet for a moment. Clara, I know things are still unsettled. Judge says the divorce will take time, legal proceedings, paperwork. But when it's done, when you're free... Yes. I meant what I said before, about courting you proper. But I want you to know there's no pressure. You've just escaped one cage. I don't want to put you in another. Clara turned to face him. This man who'd ridden into her life like a storm. Who'd fought for her when no one else would. Who'd seen her at her lowest and called her strong. You could never be a cage, Jacob Thornton. You're the key that opened one. His eyes glistened in the starlight. Clara, I'm not ready yet. Not for promises, not for plans. There's too much still unresolved. She took his face in her hands. But when I am ready, when the dust settles and the papers are signed, and I can finally breathe without fear, I want you to know something. What? The answer will be yes. Jacob's breath caught. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything in my life. He kissed her then, soft, careful, like she was something precious that might break. She kissed him back, hard, certain, like a woman finally claiming what was hers. When they separated, both were crying. I never thought I'd feel this again, Jacob whispered. After Catherine, after Rebecca, I thought that part of me died with them. It didn't die, it was just sleeping. Clara rested her forehead against his, waiting for someone to wake it up. And you? I never knew this feeling existed. Silas made sure of that. But now I know. She smiled through her tears. Better late than never. They sat together as the night deepened, holding on to each other, holding on to hope. Tomorrow would bring more challenges, testimonies, trials, the slow, grinding wheels of justice. But tonight, for the first time in longer than either could remember, the future looked bright. And somewhere in the cabin behind them, 3 little girls dreamed of sunshine instead of shadows. 6 weeks changed everything. Clara stood in the doorway of the courthouse, legal papers clutched in her trembling hands. Behind her, Jacob waited with the girls. Ahead lay a world she'd never known existed, a world where she belonged to no one but herself. It's done, she whispered. It's really done. Judge Harrison had signed the final dissolution that morning. Silas Whitfield's marriage to Clara Ann Whitfield was hereby declared null and void on grounds of sustained cruelty and documented abuse. The words swam before her eyes. Legal language, Cold and precise, but underneath them, freedom. Mama? Nellie tugged her sleeve. Can we go home now? Home. The word struck Clara like a bell. For 6 years, home had meant fear, pain, walking on eggshells and praying for survival. Now it meant a small cabin on the prairie, a man with kind eyes, a future she was finally allowed to imagine. Yes, baby. Let's go home. The ride back to the ranch passed in comfortable silence. Abigail fell asleep against Clara's shoulder. Rosie sang nonsense songs to herself, happy sounds that once would have earned a slap from Silas. Nellie rode beside Jacob, asking questions about horses and cattle and whether she could learn to rope like a real cowboy. Cowgirl, Jacob corrected. And yes, I'll teach you everything I know, even the dangerous stuff. Especially the dangerous stuff. World's a hard place for women. Better you learn to handle yourself than count on others to protect you. Nellie beamed. Clara felt her heart swell. You're good with her, she said quietly so the children wouldn't hear. She makes it easy. Jacob's eyes found hers. They all do. I forgot what it felt like. Having a family. Having people who need you. We do need you. All of us. I know. His voice dropped. I need you too. More than I ever thought I'd need anyone again. The cabin looked different when they arrived. Henry had been busy in their absence. Fresh paint on the shutters, new curtains in the windows, rough work clearly done by hands more used to fence mending than fabric. A sign hung over the door that made Clara stop in her tracks. Thornton Ranch. Henry's idea, Jacob said quickly. I told him it was too soon that you might not. It's perfect. Clara's throat tightened. It's absolutely perfect. We can change it, if you want. I know we haven't talked about. She kissed him. Right there in front of the children, the horses, the whole wide prairie. When she pulled back, his eyes were dazed. What was that for? For being you. Clara smiled through tears. For giving us a home. For never once making me feel like I had to earn my place here. You don't have to earn anything, Clara. You never did. I know. That's why I love you. The words hung in the air. Clara hadn't meant to say them. Not yet. Not like this. But they were true, and she was done hiding truth. Jacob's face transformed. The hardness he carried like armor softened. The grief he'd worn for 5 years lifted just a little. Say that again. I love you, Jacob Thornton. I love you too, Clara. He pulled her close. God help me. I've loved you since I lifted you out of that snow. I just didn't know what to call it anymore. Gross, Nellie announced. Adults are gross. They broke apart laughing. Rosie clapped her hands. Kiss again, kiss again. Later, Clara promised. Right now, let's see what Henry's done to our home. John. Inside, the changes continued. A second bedroom had been framed out rough but sturdy. Curtains divided it from the main space. 3 small beds waited there, each with a patchwork quilt that Clara recognized from Martha Harding's store. How did you afford all this? Clara turned to Jacob, stunned. I didn't. Jacob looked uncomfortable. Martha and Dr. Price and Reverend Tucker, they took up a collection, said it was the least the town could do. The town that stood by while Silas beat me. The town that's trying to do better. Jacob took her hand. I know it doesn't erase anything. I know some hurts go too deep for quilts and curtains to fix. But they're trying, Clara. Maybe that counts for something. Clara looked at the quilts, thought about the women who'd sewn them. Some had avoided her eyes for years. Some had whispered behind her back. Some had done nothing while her life fell apart. Now they were sewing quilts for her children. It counts for something, she said finally. Not everything, but something. That evening they sat down to dinner as a family. Henry had stayed on taking his meals in the barn usually, but tonight Jacob insisted he join them. Tucker came too, and Dr. Price. A strange gathering. A wounded rancher, an ex-preacher finding his courage late, a lady doctor who'd finally spoken up, a loyal hand with a shadowed past, and a woman with 3 daughters who'd escaped hell to find heaven. "Grace?" Jacob asked, looking at Tucker. The old reverend bowed his head. "Lord, we thank you for this food. We thank you for this family chosen and found and built from broken pieces. We thank you for second chances, which most of us don't deserve but need anyway." His voice cracked. "And we thank you for Clara and her girls, for their strength, for their survival, for teaching this old fool that faith means nothing without action. Amen." "Amen," everyone echoed. Rosie grabbed a biscuit. "Can I eat now?" "Yes, baby." Clara laughed. "You can eat now." The meal passed with laughter and stories. Henry told tales from his days in the army. Dr. Price shared medical misadventures that had Nellie fascinated, and Abigail covering her ears. Tucker quoted scripture, then admitted he was rethinking everything he'd ever been taught about what God really wanted from his people. "I spent my whole life reading the Bible," he said. "But I never really saw it. Love thy neighbor, protect the widow and orphan, stand up for the oppressed." He shook his head. "Silas Whitfield sat in my church every Sunday, and I never once told him his treatment of his wife was a sin." "You're telling him now," Clara said. "You testified. You'll testify again at the trial. It's not enough." "Maybe not, but it's more than nothing, and nothing is what I had for 6 years." Clara reached across the table, touched the old man's weathered hand. "You came when it mattered, Reverend. That's what I'll remember." Tucker's eyes filled. He couldn't speak. "Jipya." After dinner, after the visitors had left and the children had been put to bed, Clara found Jacob on the porch. He stood looking at the stars, one hand resting on the rail where they'd stood together so many nights during the siege. The siege that felt like a lifetime ago and only yesterday. "Thinking about Catherine?" Clara asked. "Yes." He didn't try to hide it. "And Rebecca? Wondering what they'd think of all this." "What do you believe they'd think?" Jacob was quiet for a long moment. "I think Catherine would be happy. She always hated seeing me alone, said I needed someone to boss me around." Clara smiled. "I can do that." "I know you can." He turned to face her. "I think she'd like you. You're strong like her, fierce, brave enough to stand up for what matters." "And Rebecca?" "She never drew breath, never opened her eyes. But I dreamed about her so many times, who she'd be, what she'd say." Jacob's voice roughened. "I think she'd love having sisters." Clara moved closer, took his hands. "I want to meet them, Catherine and Rebecca. Will you take me to them? Now." "Tomorrow, when the sun's up. I want to introduce myself. Tell them I'll take care of you." Jacob pulled her into his arms, held her tight. "You already do," he whispered. "Every day, just by being here." Morning came soft and golden. Clara woke in the small bed she'd claimed in the main room separate from Jacob, because they'd agreed to wait until things were proper. He slept in the barn, still gentleman to the end. But today felt different. Today felt like the beginning of something new. She rose before the children, made coffee, stood in the doorway watching the sun climb over the horizon. Jacob appeared from the barn, looking like he hadn't slept much either. "Ready?" he asked. "Yes." They walked together up the hill behind the cabin. It wasn't far, maybe a quarter mile, but it felt like crossing into sacred space. 2 wooden crosses stood at the crest, weathered by 5 years of wind and weather. Between them, a pair of young oak trees had grown tall. Catherine Thornton, one cross read, "Beloved wife, 1856-1878. Rebecca Thornton read the other, "Our daughter, born and died, March 3rd, 1878. Clara knelt in the frost-touched grass. "Hello," she said softly. "My name is Clara. I'm the woman who loves your husband, your father." Her voice caught. "I know I can't replace either of you. I don't want to try, but I wanted you to know I'll take care of him. I'll make sure he laughs again. I'll give him a family to come home to." She felt Jacob kneel beside her. His hand found hers. "Catherine, this is Clara. She saved my life even when I didn't want to be saved. And these are her daughters, Nellie, Abigail, and Rosie. You'd love them. They're wild and brave, and they don't take nonsense from anybody." He paused, swallowed hard. "Rebecca, sweetheart, you've got sisters now. I know it's not the same. Nothing will ever be the same as what we should have had. But these girls need a father, and I'd like to be that for them. If that's all right with you." The wind stirred the oak leaves. Somewhere a bird sang. Clara leaned against Jacob's shoulder. "Do you think they heard?" "I think so. I think they've been waiting for me to stop being afraid." "Are you still afraid?" "No." Jacob kissed the top of her head. "Not anymore." The trial came in early April. Silas Whitfield faced a federal court on charges of aggravated assault, attempted murder, and sustained domestic abuse. The courthouse was packed not just from Haven Creek, but from towns across the territory. Word had spread about the rancher's wife who'd finally spoken up, about the strangers who'd helped her, about the new laws that might come from this case. Clara testified for 3 hours. She told everything: the first slap on their wedding night, the escalation, the broken bones, the night spent bleeding on the floor while her children listened. She told it all, voice, steady, eyes fixed on the judge. When she finished, the courtroom was silent. Silas's lawyer tried to cross-examine, tried to paint her as an adulteress, a runaway, a woman who'd abandoned her lawful husband. But Dr. Price's records were irrefutable. Tucker's testimony was devastating. And when Nellie took the stand, 9 years old, small hands gripping the rail, and described what she'd witnessed, even the hardest men in the room looked away. The jury deliberated for less than an hour, guilty on all counts. Silas Whitfield was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. As the deputies led him away, he turned and screamed at Clara. "You'll pay for this, you and your Mr. Whitfield." Judge Harrison's voice cracked like thunder. "One more word, and I'll add contempt to your sentence. You've done enough damage. It ends now." The doors closed behind him. Clara sat in the courtroom surrounded by people who'd become family, and felt something she'd almost forgotten existed: peace. They married in May. Small ceremony, just the people who mattered. Tucker performed the service, his last official act before stepping down from the ministry to work at Martha Harding's store, where he said he could do more good selling flour than selling sermons he wasn't sure he believed anymore. Clara wore a blue dress that Dr. Price had helped her pick out. Nothing fancy, nothing expensive, just clean and new, and chosen by her own hands. The girls served as flower girls, all 3 of them scattering petals from a basket they'd woven themselves. Rosie kept eating the petals until Nellie slapped her hand. "Dearly beloved," Tucker began, then stopped, cleared his throat. "You know what? Let's skip the formal parts. We all know why we're here." Laughter rippled through the small gathering. "Jacob Thornton, you're a stubborn fool who nearly got yourself killed saving strangers. Clara, you're the bravest woman I've ever met, and I've met a lot of women." Tucker smiled. "You two deserve each other, in the best possible way." "Is that the official blessing?" Jacob asked. "That's the Tucker blessing. Better than official." The old reverend sobered. "Do you, Jacob, take Clara as your wife, to love and cherish in good times and bad, for as long as you both shall live?" "I do." "And do you, Clara, take Jacob as your husband freely this time?" "With no fear. With no obligation, but love." Clara looked at the man who'd ridden into her nightmare and refused to leave. The man who'd fought for her, bled for her, seen her at her lowest and called her strong. I do. Then by the power vested in me by the fact that I'm the only one here who can do this. Tucker grinned. I pronounce you husband and wife. Jacob, you may kiss your bride. He did, thoroughly. Gross, Nellie announced again. You'll understand when you're older, Clara said. I hope not. Boys are stupid. Most of them are, Jacob agreed. But not all. They planted an apple tree that afternoon. All 5 of them worked together digging the hole, positioning the sapling filling in the dirt. It was small, barely waist-high to Nellie, but it was theirs. How long till we get apples? Abigail asked. Few years, Jacob said. Trees take time. That's forever. Nope, just feels like it. He lifted Rosie onto his shoulders. But we've got time, plenty of it now. Clara watched her family, her real family, the one she'd chosen and been chosen by, gathered around a tiny tree that might someday feed them all. Thank you, she said. For what? For this. All of it. She gestured at the cabin, the ranch, the endless prairie. 6 months ago, I was dying in the snow. Now I have everything I never knew to dream of. You did that yourself, Clara. I just happened to be riding past. No, you chose to stop. You chose to help. You chose us. She took his hand. Don't ever tell me it was luck or coincidence. You chose, and that choice saved us all. Jacob pulled her close, kissed her forehead. Then I'll keep choosing. Every day. For the rest of my life. That evening, Clara took the girls to visit Catherine and Rebecca. It had become a ritual in the weeks since her first visit. The girls brought wildflowers. Rosie told rambling stories about chickens and butterflies. Abigail asked questions about heaven. Nellie sat quietly still, processing everything in her old soul way. Mama, Nellie asked as they walked back down the hill. Do you think Mrs. Catherine minds that you married Mr. Jacob? I think she's glad he's not alone anymore. Clara squeezed her daughter's hand. Love isn't like water, Nellie. It doesn't run out. Having more people to love doesn't mean loving anyone less. So Mr. Jacob can love us and Mrs. Catherine at the same time? Yes. And I can love him and still remember your father was once kind to me before he changed. Nellie frowned. I don't want to remember Papa being kind. That's okay too. You get to remember however you need to. There's no right way to feel about hard things. They reached the cabin as the sun touched the horizon. Jacob stood on the porch framed by golden light, and Clara felt her heart swell until she thought it might burst. Ready for supper? He called. Coming. Abigail ran ahead. Race you! Rosie tottered after her sister. Clara and Nellie followed slowly hand in hand. Mama. Yes, baby. I'm happy. Is that okay? To be happy after everything bad? Clara stopped, knelt down, took her daughter's face in her hands. That's not just okay, Nellie. That's the whole point. We survived the bad, so we could have the good. Being happy isn't betraying what happened. It's winning. It's proving that all the pain couldn't break us. Nellie's eyes glistened. I thought maybe happiness was for other people, not for us. I thought that too once. I was wrong. Clara kissed her daughter's forehead. Happiness is for everyone brave enough to claim it. And you, my darling girl, are the bravest person I know. Months passed. Seasons turned. The apple tree grew. The cabin expanded 2 more rooms, added a proper kitchen, a porch that wrapped around 3 sides. The ranch prospered. Jacob took on more cattle, hired more hands. Clara discovered she had a talent for bookkeeping, for organizing, for turning chaos into order. The girls flourished. Nellie learned to ride like she'd been born in the saddle. Abigail found her voice singing songs that carried across the prairie. Rosie, now 4, bossed everyone around and called Jacob Papa, without a trace of memory of the man who'd fathered her. And every night, Clara and Jacob sat on their porch and watched the stars. "You know what I realized?" Clara said one evening as summer faded into autumn. "What's that?" "I used to count bruises. Every night before I fell asleep I'd count them. How many new ones? How many were healing? It was how I measured time. And now," Clara smiled, "now I count blessings. 3 healthy daughters, a husband who loves me, friends who stood up when it mattered, a home that feels like home. That's a lot to count. More than I can fit in one night. I'll have to spread them out across a lifetime." Jacob pulled her closer. "Good thing we've got one of those." The first apple came the following spring. It was small, a little misshapen, not quite ripe, but Rosie found it on a morning walk and carried it back to the cabin like a treasure. "Look, look, our tree made a apple." Everyone gathered around. This tiny, imperfect fruit that represented years of patience, years of growth, years of hoping something beautiful could come from something planted in pain. "Can I eat it?" Rosie asked. "Not yet, sweetheart. Few more weeks." "But I want it now." "Best things take time." Jacob ruffled her hair. "You'll understand when you're older." "Everyone keeps saying that. When will I be older?" "Sooner than we want," Clara said softly. "Enjoy being young while you can." Later, after the children had been put to bed, Clara and Jacob stood by the apple tree in the moonlight. "I used to think God punished me," Clara said. 3 daughters instead of sons, a husband who hated me for it. I thought I must have done something terrible to deserve that life. And now I think God was saving me. Every daughter was a reason to survive. Every year was leading me here to you to this." She touched the tree's small branches. "I wouldn't change anything, not even the pain, because it brought me home." Jacob wrapped his arms around her from behind. They stood together, breathing the same air, watching the same moon that had witnessed all their sorrows and all their joys. "You know what I think," he said. "What? I think home isn't a place. It's the people you'd burn the world down to protect." "That's very philosophical." "Had a lot of time to think these past years." He kissed her temple. "Came to a lot of conclusions, most of them wrong. But this one I'm sure about." Clara leaned back into his warmth, closed her eyes, let herself feel how far they'd come. From a screaming woman in the snow to this. From a broken man who'd forgotten how to live to this. From 3 terrified little girls to this. This moment, this peace, this love. Jacob. I'm glad you stopped." "I'm glad I did too. No, I mean really. Hundreds of men could have ridden past that day. Most of them would have looked away. But you didn't. You stopped. I told you why. I know. Because of your mother. Because of Catherine and Rebecca. Because you made a promise." "That's right." Clara turned in his arms, looked up at his weathered, beloved face. "Thank you for keeping it." He kissed her, slow and deep and full of everything they'd survived to reach this moment. When they parted, the first light of dawn was touching the horizon. "New day," Jacob said. "New day." Clara agreed. They walked back to the cabin together, to the children who would soon wake, demanding breakfast to the life they'd built from ashes and courage. Behind them, the apple tree stood in the growing light, roots deep, branches reaching toward the sky. Home, they'd discovered, wasn't what you found. It was what you fought for. It was what you chose. And they had chosen each other.